Tudo kitchen, boy. I'm hungry.
What's up everybody, and welcome back to Tudo Kitchen. Today we're going to be making smothered pork chops. So we're going to start off this recipe by seasoning our pork chops with a little bit of salt and black pepper. Don't be afraid to season these nice and generously. Okay, once you've seasoned them up with salt and pepper, we're going to go ahead and move on to just a little bit of garlic powder. Again, make sure you coat all the sides, guys. Even though we're going to be rubbing this in, you still want to make sure you get a nice amount of seasoning on your pork chops. Next, we're going to move on to some onion powder. You could use granulated garlic and or onion if you would like. Alright, next we're going to go ahead and move on to some thyme. I'm using dried thyme. If you have some fresh thyme, use that. And I'm going to also finish it off with a little bit of cayenne pepper. Alright, I like to just go ahead and put a little bit of oil just to be able to help the seasonings bind well to the pork. Rub that in nice, like you're giving a pork chop a nice massage, you know? Alright, let's turn over our pork chops and we're going to start over pretty much with the same seasoning blend and do that all over again, guys. Now we're going to go ahead and start our dredging mix. I'm only using flour. If you'd like to use something else, you could, but I just prefer to use flour for these processes. Now I'm just go ahead and season this up with a little bit of seasoning salt, as well as a little bit of garlic powder. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and pretty much do what we do with everything we're about to fry. Just go ahead and get it nice and coated on both sides. Don't skip out on seasoning your flour, guys, because you'll notice if you don't season your flour, I promise. Okay, once they're all seasoned up, they are ready to be moved to the cast iron so we can pretty much fry them up. Shake off the excess. Now, in a cast iron pan, I had some vegetable oil, pretty much getting it nice and warm. You don't want it too hot because you don't want it to burn. Also, we're kind of shallow frying this, so not a whole lot of oil either. Again, guys, if you want the full recipe, it'll be in the description. You pretty much want your pork chops to pretty much get a little golden on the top. You see what happens when you let your oil get a little too hot? Mine didn't necessarily burn, but it did get a little bit more golden than I would have liked it to be. But we can still save this because now we're just going to have a darker gravy, which is perfectly fine. Alright, now let's go ahead and remove this from the oil, and so we can start working on our peppers and onions. Okay, now I could do this in the same pan, but I honestly like to start off with a new pan when I'm doing my peppers and onions, just so they can develop their own flavors themselves first. So yeah, just go ahead and dice up or chop up or however you like some peppers and onions. I'm just using some red onions and some green peppers I had on hand. If you want to use any assortment of onions and peppers, that is perfectly fine. Now I'm going to go ahead and add pretty much 2 to 3 tablespoons of butter. I'm using salted butter. You could use unsalted, but I do prefer to use butter, salted butter, for making some sort of gravy or roux or anything. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and add pretty much 2 to 3 tablespoons of flour as well. We want this to get nice and incorporated. I like to let this go for a little bit because I want my gravy to get a little bit darker. So I do let this go for a minute instead of such a light gravy. Yeah, let that cook for a little bit in a pan, and you want to go ahead and season it out with just a little bit of salt. You can add black pepper too if you'd like, but I just, I've added both, of course, but if you just want to add salt, that's really the main ingredient you need to add for seasoning up your peppers and onions. Also, I'm adding just a little bit of garlic powder in there, some onion powder, and also I'm going to go ahead and add some more dried thyme. I'm going to also add some cayenne pepper in there. Now, I'm just pretty much seasoning this roux up intensely because I didn't use any of the leftover flour from the pork chops, so we're pretty much making our own flavored roux again. Not a big deal. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and add about 1.5 cups of chicken stock. You could use beef stock, but I do prefer to use chicken stock when I'm making gravy for pork chops. Alright, now I'm just go ahead and put my pork chops back in a pan. As you can see, the gravy's already starting to thicken up. But pretty much after you put those in there, you can go ahead and let them get nice and soft. Coat them a little bit. Or coat them a lot of bit, because this is a smothered pork chop recipe. But yeah, we can just go ahead and pretty much cover them entirely. And we're going to go ahead and put our top back on after it's covered. We want the steam to start kind of cooking it itself. Alright, and after about 15-20 minutes of just kind of stewing in its own gravy, you'll pretty much have some amazingly flavorful and nice and tender, juicy pork chops. They're actually so tender I can kind of cut them with a fork, as you can see here. But yeah, y'all, hope you guys enjoy.